By this point, you've learned a little bit about the development of cell theory over the last 400 years. It's an incredible journey that leads us to understand the basic unit of life, which is what? What is the basic unit of life? Hopefully by now you understand that the basic unit of life is the cell. Perhaps you have not ever considered this, but you are so very fortunate to live in a day and age where we know so much about the cell. It wasn't that long ago, like less than 400 years ago, that for thousands of years humans would get sick. They would, one day everybody in your village is completely healthy, and then the next day people are dying of a plague or getting leprosy or cholera outbreaks. People are dying. And why? Why is this happening? Nothing changed. Was it the weather? Are the gods angry at us? Is it that witch who lives down by the river? Who knows? So for so long, people were really in the dark about, and until you understand that there are protists and there are bacteria in your environment, until you have a tool to observe those organisms, you were really left in the dark. And so you are so very fortunate to live in a day and age where we know so much about the cell. Before we get into go much further, I'd like you to pause this video and take a quick pre-assessment. Studies have shown that when you're quizzed on information, before you learn that information, you are more likely to retain it when you do learn it. So hit pause right now, and that includes you, EDUC 547 students. Take this quick pretest, and then I'll see you in a minute. Okay, thank you for taking that quiz. So scientists have studied the cell since microscopes were first invented, and obviously they're still studying them today. Cell theory is a working theory, and there are aspects to the cell that scientists still do not fully understand. And we'll go into what is not known in a few minutes. But first, I'd like to talk about the three main tenets of cell theory. These are important tenets, and these are things that you would be tested on in the future, so be sure to write these down. The first tenet is all organisms are composed of one or more cells. So some cells, some species are just one cell big, like Amoeba proteus. It's just one cell is its entire being. And then there are cells, other species that are composed of many cells working together. These are multicellular organisms. And for example, us, human beings, we're on the magnitude of about 37 trillion cells in just one body. Everything from redwood trees to mushrooms to blue whales, every living species is composed of at least one cell and often many more than one cell. Number two, cells are the smallest unit of life. And I'd like to show you this really quick. This can kind of give you a scale for how small cells are. So there's a coffee bean right here. And here's a grain of sand, a sesame seed. Okay, now we're getting to the millimeter sizes. We've a grain of salt. And then we get down to micrometers. Here's an Amoeba proteus with a, and then here's Paramecium. Maybe you remember seeing Paramecium. They have the cilia all around them, and then the oral groove in the center. Okay, and here's a mammalian cell here, a human egg cell, kind of about the size of a Paramecium, a little bit smaller. This is the largest human cell. And then we've got skin cells, red blood cells. There's a sperm cell, it's the smallest human cell. And then you get even smaller. Here's subcellular components, organelles that you'll be learning about later on. Mitochondria, lysosomes. Okay, here's a bacteria. So this would be about as small as a cell, a living cell can be. The prokaryotes, like bacteria, E. coli bacteria. This is the thing that can make you really sick when you get food poisoning. And then there's even smaller things like viruses, but viruses are not considered living, a living species. They don't have all the characteristics of life. Okay, well, I'd hate for you to think that cell theory just stopped in around 1850 and nothing has been added to it. Of course not. There are other tenets to cell theory that have been added since the time of Louis Pasteur and Schwann and all the other scientists that you will be learning about today. Some of those newer additions are the fact that energy flows occurs within the cell. So this is adenosine triphosphate, the currency of energy. There's a molecule of DNA. So DNA passes from cell to cell. That's another the heredity information is passed from cell to cell. Another tenet. Another tenet would be that all cells have the same basic chemical composition. Now, I'd hate for you to walk away thinking that we have learned everything there is to know about cells. Absolutely not. There are things, especially about the organelles. For example, how energy flows within the Golgi apparatus. That's not understood. How, if we found life on another planet, would it have cells? Would those cells have the same chemical composition as the cells that we have on Earth? Would they have DNA? That's just kind of trippy to think about, that it could be made of completely different chemical composition. There could be life forms that have a completely different chemical composition than we do. This would change our definition of what biology is and what life is. The characteristics of life would change. Maybe we'd have to have two different branches of biology. We'd have Earth biology and universal biology or something. Anyway, some things to think about. Okay, next you're going to be learning about some of the exceptions to cell theory and theories versus laws. Thank you.